This program is part of ANCOR's 2020 annual conference, one of many opportunities offered to ANCOR members throughout the year. ANCOR is the American network of community options and resources. Learn more about ANCOR and explore membership benefits and options at anchor.org. We hope you enjoy today's session.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third session of the 2020 ANCOR Virtual Annual Conference. My name is Sean Lichtefeld, and I am the Communications Director for ANCOR, and I am excited to be kicking off this session, which is called Beyond the Concept Phase, Smart Technology to Deliver Services in Changing Times. Before I introduce our speaker for today's session, I wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping notes with you so that everybody can fully participate in today's session. First, please note that closed captioning is available for this session. And if you would like to view the closed captioning, you can simply select the closed caption button from the Zoom control panel. Generally, if you hover over the bottom part of your Zoom control panel, below where you currently see the PowerPoint slide, you'll see the control panel options, and you can simply select closed captioning. Second, please use the Q&A feature to send questions to Brian Hart, today's presenter. Brian will address as many of the questions as possible that he can during today's hour. And if there are any questions that you have that you are unable to ask today or that you are unable to receive an answer to, we will share those with our presenter and we will follow up with you shortly. Third and finally, please note that this session is being recorded, and to ensure sound quality, all participants are in listen-only mode. If you are interested in the recording of the session or the slides that will be made available, stay tuned for an announcement from ANCOR for when those materials will be made available. If you have any questions or if there are any troubleshooting problems, simply use the Zoom webinar chat to reach out to me, and I will be muting my screen, but I will be available to assist with any difficulties that you may have. And now I am privileged to introduce our speaker for today, who is Brian Hart, Vice President for Strategic Operations at LAD. LAD is a Cincinnati-based nonprofit organization providing supports to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And today, Brian is going to be presenting a session called Beyond the Concept Phase, Smart Technology to Deliver Services in Changing Times. Brian's bio has sort of an apt statement about what guides his work, which is that he is guided by the notion of empowering all to realize full independence. And especially in times like these, I think that there is no better time to take those words to heart and to really realize what it is that we can all be doing to help people live full, independent, and inclusive lives. So Brian, thank you for being here today. Take it away.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to pull up my slides so we can go into those. So I am really excited, and thank you all for joining me today. I'm humbled that you guys are logging in from wherever you're at. I have been really excited to share this information with the broader community for a while. And even though I'm not in person, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a project that I believe will be a model for a new way of doing services and delivering services. While I was excited to share this and get away from the rainy Cincinnati spring and be in Miami with all of you for a few days, I'm so glad that we were able to have this and ANCOR put this together for us to share today. So my name is Brian Hart, and I am the VP of Strategic Operations at LAD, and we are an agency in Cincinnati. I have spent the last decade working in the field of disability services. The majority of my work has been focused around how to expand people's options in the community through independence and individual growth. And at LAD, in my position, I have this amazing job where I get to look at the future, look down the road, and decide how are we going to build something bigger, better, and a more inclusive world for the people we serve. And then I hand it off to programming to run it, and then I get to go on to the next thing. So it's an amazing opportunity. I'm grateful that I get to do it. A little bit about LAD and who we are as an organization. It is not moving forward. There we go. So 45 years ago this year, LAD was founded by families, and like a lot of organizations, were founded out of a need. So in the Cincinnati area, there was a deep need for residential services and other services for adults with disabilities. We've grown from a small community to serving over 500 people today with developmental disabilities, and serving that with around 200 staff members. We focus in areas of housing, supported employment, and meaningful engagement. Our work propels the inclusion and success of people with disabilities. We inspire others to see strength and diversity, and we do that through all of the areas that we serve. At LAD, one of the things that I love about it is that we are never satisfied with the work that we're providing. We're constantly striving to do better. We're always looking for a new opportunity to provide more opportunities, and then take those opportunities and provide them at a higher level. And really, through the things that I'm sharing today, I hope you can see the work that we're doing and how you also could take the same things we're doing and do them wherever you're at. So like a lot of other areas, we have some huge challenges here in Ohio. So the state of Ohio, through its different agencies, spend about 3.37, so a little under $3.5 billion annually to serve the people that with developmental disabilities. Additionally, as of 2015, which is the latest time we got this data, there's still 45,000 who are waiting for services, and that number continues to grow. And in Ohio, they got rid of the waiting list and now provide services to anyone under an emergency waiver, but still the demand is growing constantly. So with 1 in 41 boys being born on the autism spectrum, people with disabilities living longer lives, we have a huge problem with the opioid crisis, specifically in Midwestern America, and we really don't know what that's going to look like. And then I'm assuming, like where everyone else is at, before we even came into a pandemic, we had a huge DSP staffing crisis. So that even though we have increased wages to them through 3 budget cycles, it's still a huge issue. So in Ohio and with LAD, we could not keep up with the demand without an alternative solution. And so we knew that a new solution was needed. And so we decided to do it now. So we always are looking at, when should we start doing these things? We see problems coming, and we look at all these things that are going on. So our current needs are unmet. There's tons of inefficiencies that are going on. We think about, our CEO likes to talk about how often she would go into the homes, and we are providing services to people that entail them watching TV or other things, just because there's not a system set up for them to do anything different. Even with the waiting list elimination, there's still a lot of people that are needing services. But we also know that technology is advancing, and staff shortages are not getting better. Turnover is getting higher. We're never going to have enough people to do it. And so we decided that it wasn't upon us to continue to wait. We had to make decisions, and we had to move now. And so we decided to innovate a new model, and we're calling this our Smart Living Pilot. And what we're doing through our Smart Living Pilot is we decided to find a new way to deliver services. How we're doing this is we are building a state-of-the-art home with technology built in right from the ground up. This home is a combination of smart home technology, remote support services, and wearable technology that will leave with the person when they walk out the doors of their home. It's a 3-year pilot that we started that's going to look at what we can do to solve all of these needs that we have. We want to continue to have integration, training, technology, and then eventually lower the cost of services. Also, our smart home will be a kind of an incubator for us to develop a long-term service model that will help us fulfill these goals. So there's a lot of ways to test these things, and we looked at all the different ways. Do we try one technology with our group and then move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing? Could we theorize what are we doing and then develop a pilot around that? And we decided we were going to do something a little different than normal, and we were going to jump both feet headfirst in as fast as we could. And so our pilot is developing this model while working and serving the 4 individuals who are actually going to be living in the home. So everything we're doing is not theoretical, it's real world. We're actually using a lot of these technologies, even while we're still building our home. Another awesome part about this pilot is we're working with Xavier University's occupational therapy program to do a long-term research project on which technology that we're putting into the home will have the greatest return on investment and the impact on independence. So there will not be any anecdotal means of, well, this seemed to work or that seemed to work. We actually have a team of occupational therapy master's students who are working with us alongside this whole progress. And it's been really cool to see that the way that they look at things different from the way that I look at things sometimes. And that research and that data will be published, it'll be available for anyone else to use. The other thing we're looking at is a remote support system so that once someone leaves the home, that they still have supports that go with them no matter where they're at. And so a lot of times with the remote monitoring that exists now, it's really for when someone's asleep or when they're in their home. But our vision at LAD is we've always wanted to create a more community-based model. And so even though that's a little different right now in the middle of a pandemic, that doesn't change the heart of what we really are. And so having someone in their home using technology all day, every day is really not what we're looking for. We want to create a wraparound model for them that no matter where they're at, either at their home, in the community, or at work, they have these models with them as well. And then lastly, we're developing an alternative service model for people that have not gotten a waiver and are not likely going to be in an emergency situation. And so, in a lot of states and in Ohio, someone could be receiving services that equal up to $90,000 a year to provide service. And if you are not on a waiver and you don't have the means to private pay for those situations, a lot of times these types of services are just out of reach. And so one of the arms of what we're doing is finding a model that the people that are in the middle class who don't have services and can't afford to private pay would still have a model of support. So they can increase the self-sufficiency of the people they serve. And then also in the goal at the end of the day is to save resources for the state of Ohio and wherever you may be, so that more people could have access to those services. Now, this doesn't work unless we scale it up. And so we did some modeling with this, and this is just some interesting how quickly when you start to do cost savings, this can add up. So currently, and this is updated with numbers, so we're spending $3.8 billion in Ohio between the state and county system to serve 90,000 people. When you take those people plus the 45,000 that are waiting to receive services, that still leaves a huge gap. We've looked at it and have found that if we can reduce services by 1 hour a week through technology to only 20% of eligible persons currently being served, that results in almost $1 million a year in total cost savings. And when you start to think about how you would actually scale that out to increase what that looks like and how many more people could be served with with this money, it really opens your eyes on how scaling this can really make a huge return on your investment. So the first thing we had to do is we had to start by choosing the guys that are going to be living in the house. And as you look behind, these are our 4 guys, and behind them you can see the house when it was in construction phase. And the question is asked to us all the time, how do you go about choosing the people that you're going to have here in your pilot home and in your pilot program? And we decided that there were a few different ways to look at it. We could use some people that have very close, similar disabilities, and we could really delve into and solve some really hard problems with them. We could use a few different technology models and solve a few problems, or we could do what we did, and we found 4 guys that are in a similar age range and have a variety of disabilities that give us the largest technology needs sample size. And so out of the 4 guys we have here, we have Down syndrome, autism, other intellectual developmental disabilities. We have hearing impairment, verbal impairment, and vision impairment as well. And why those are important is because the technology interacts with everybody differently. And so a lot of times you'll think, well, we'll put technology in and we'll solve a lot of issues by throwing in an Alexa or a personal assistant device. And that goes out the door when you have someone who has a verbal or hearing impairment. And then we think, well, we could just use touch screens and we can do different things with that. And then if someone has a vision impairment, how are they going to use it? And so through our model, we've decided to look at as much as we possibly can, obviously knowing we can't solve everything, but trying to build in as much as we can to solve the largest group of populations. We worked with Xavier's School of Occupational Therapy to do assessments on a bunch of people that live in the area to find the 4 best guys that fit the model that we need. They did some exhaustive research, and I have to thank them for that, to decide on who we're going to choose, help us navigate through that, and also make sure that we have commitment from everyone around them. So we have to make sure we have supportive families, supportive staff members for where they currently may live, as well as the buy-in from the guys themselves. This is a new world that we're moving into and they're breaking ground on. We also have 3 different living situations we're transitioning from. So we have one guy who's living in a group home now, who has lived in a group home for a while, and then will be transitioning to living on his own with roommates. One who has lived in an apartment on a campus that was specifically built for adults with disabilities. And even though he lives in an apartment, there's still a lot of support that's around him all the time. And then 2 guys who live in their parents' home. And we all know the level of support that mom and dad give us when we're living at home. And so there's inherent challenges in not only transitioning them from where they're at to somewhere else, but also the different living situations. You know, some of these guys haven't really had a roommate before. And so we're going beyond the just teaching them different types of technology and what they need to know to live in the house, and moving into how do you have a roommate? How do you deal with these types of things as well? And how do we, once we move into more technology, less staff, actually solve this? As we go through our pilot, the other part of it is that we are going to be phasing out some of their natural staff. And so they need to learn how are they going to do things more and more on their own. Now, the biggest part of the puzzle that we had is that we knew we couldn't just do this as a side project. This is something that we really had to have a lot of investment in. We have some great partners here in Cincinnati. We reached out to a local firm named Sonova, and they're one of our technical consultants. We have a local consultant who has worked in the special education system for a long time and really understands residents in transition and things like that. We have someone who works from us who comes from the for-profit business world, spent decades running large companies, helping us guide and navigate the project management of this. And putting those things together, we put together a tight planning process so that when you hear all of these things that we're doing and we send you our toolkit we're working with, you'll want to implement this on your own. Here's kind of how we looked at it. First, we identified what possible tech solutions and partners are out there to advance our vision. So we looked at the needs and solutions that exist. And this sounds like a really simple process to say, okay, let's think about what types of things would we need to replace with technology if we're building a model that will every month or every 6 months or every year increase the number of independent hours and decrease the number of staff interventions. And as we started going down this road and building a spreadsheet, it went from a spreadsheet that had 20 or 30 lines on it to one that had a couple hundred lines to now has about 12 different tabs. Each tab has 100 different lines on it that interact with each other. Because when you think about somebody's whole life, you really have to think about what things go into just one day, for example. And so all of the things that we've thought about, we're trying to find a full list of what are the needs and all the solutions that we have for those needs. And then we had to look at, okay, now we know what we need, and then we need to look at what could we actually have. And so that gets sorted down to what do we actually have that could potentially be available. As we do that, we have to look and go to our next phase and start vetting those ideas. So just because we have this amazing idea of something we want to have happen doesn't necessarily mean that it means that it exists. One of the things that we have always been striving to find is a smart med dispenser for multiple users out of one device. It's something that we have not found a perfect solution for, or very many solutions. If you have an amazing solution, my email will be here at the end. I would love to hear about it. But looking at what different partnerships we could have, looking at established models that exist, knowing that we're never the first person there, but we could potentially innovate and assist to grow something else that's out there. And then we are going to implement the technology. We look at the different things that we're working with. So we started using our technology at the beginning of this year. And even though the 4 guys aren't moving into their house and fully immersed in all the technology of the house until this fall, they're already using it today. So it's in their homes, they're using it, we're monitoring it and learning it. And then the next phase is we're determining the economic and consumer quality of life impacts and values. And that's a huge important part, because if we're not looking at that, it doesn't really make sense to continue through the pilot. As we go through this, we've been able to explore new segmentation possibilities. We're looking at the demand for this. We thought maybe this is something that LAD would do and it would really grow what we do. But we found that this is a model that could really exist elsewhere. And so as we've learned and grown, we've decided to add more and more into it. And then at the end, we're constantly evaluating our ability to scale this. LAD's goal is to continue to serve more and more people, as most service providers are. And knowing that we have limitations on funding and limitations on staff, without technology, really, we don't have an ability to do that. And so we're continuing to evaluate the process to ensure that we're meeting all of these things. Now, as we go through, the big part that we have and that we found is that we are doing things differently than others are. And the biggest piece of the puzzle that we knew we had to have is a remote support service platform that would solve the safety and security issues that we have that are going to replace or fade out existing staff that are in the home. Now, we're never going to fully replace the staff that are in the home. And like I tell my staff all the time, nor are they going to have to look for another job. In fact, at the end of the day, we're probably going to need more staff. And not only are we going to need more of them, we're going to need them to be more specialized. Because as we decrease the in-person staff hours that are just there with the person while they're living, training as they go, we're also going to have staff that are intervention specialists that are doing different things throughout the day. But our remote support platform was really the keystone to what we needed. What we did find, though, unfortunately, is as we went through 23 different technology options, several states, a couple Canadian provinces, there are a lot of good solutions on the market. But unfortunately, there's not anything that fully meets what we're looking to accomplish. One of the biggest differences we found is that the systems that are out there between what they have and what we're ultimately trying to produce with our pilot is they don't go as far as we want to go and don't cover enough areas into one system. So we are doing much more than doing remote monitoring on someone. A lot of times remote monitoring is done for people that have limited needs with cameras and sensors. What we're looking to do is and what we're doing is developing a program that provides remote supports and services, and also can be for a large pool of abilities. So I've worked with a lot of different types of ability and a lot of different levels of disability, and to be able to develop a model that can be used across the spectrum is really exciting. We did find that these remote monitoring providers, many of them are also not focused in the DD world. And so there are a lot of systems that are out there for maybe aging or senior living, but they really don't focus on what we're looking for. And the biggest thing is we didn't find anything that leaves the home with someone that is built into the baseline of their structure. And so in the world that we're living in our services, we're not trying to provide everything around somebody in the home they live in. We want them to use the community, go out there and get everything. But we also want to be able to have them have the freedom to go and do something alone if they want, but also have the safety net of the remote supports. So basically, again, we had to develop a model that would meet all of the requirements we had, but try to find that one system that would service in one area was not possible. So what we found is that we're going through, and our conclusion is multiple platforms. So we're going to have multiple platforms that all do different things. We'll have integration, but not full integration. If we tried to have full integration, the costs just go up exponentially trying to get one thing. Also, we found that with a lot of our platform providers, because this is new to the DD world, we're going to have to grow with them. We're going to have to teach them how we work, teach them our models. And also a lot of these companies, just as a little bit of advice I wanted to give as you're looking into this, there's a lot of risk because a lot of these are startups. So make sure that, like we're doing, as you go through this, you want to make sure that you can continue to use the system. If somebody goes away, you want to be able to still provide services. What we did find, though, in our needs and solutions sheet, out of hundreds, probably close to thousands of items on there, that total requirements through our remote support platform, through our solutions in home automation and solutions in wearable technology, 89% of total requirements we have a solution for. And that means, and that's everything we could think of. That's the must-haves, the want-haves, the would-be nice-to-haves. Now, in terms of our must-have requirements, the things that we absolutely must have to make sure someone's safe and secure, we've been able to find 99% of those solutions. And the 1% right now, we're going to be filling in with physical staffing. The cool thing about this is we didn't think we would be able to get this far this easily. It really was exciting to find that a lot of this technology is out there. It's just segmented among different concepts and different fields of technology. And so through all of this, like I keep saying, is we're developing at LAD and through our partnership with Xavier, a toolkit so that wherever you're at, whatever state you might be in, whatever county or city you're providing services in, you can take this toolkit and learn from the lessons that we've learned from. So we've spent a lot of time and a lot of money developing into these things. And we want to be able to have this be not just for what LAD does, but a system changing across the country. And so as we go through this, and we'll keep you updated on where we're at with this, those types of things will go on. Now for some insight into what's going into the home, I have just a few slides we'll go over that show some of the tech that we're working on to provide the safety and security that's inside the home, because everyone really wants to know, what are you actually going to do? So over here on the left, you can see this is the blueprint of the house. This is a rendering of it. And it shows all the different things we have. There's a few different things we changed here. We've converted the garage into a man cave because none of our guys drive. And so turning it into a man cave was a better option. In terms of technology around driving, though, we're currently in talks with our local transit authority to develop some maybe smart driving options. So in states like Ohio, where the autonomous driving vehicles are allowed and legal, that's going to be a great option that we're pursuing through our technology. As you look here, you can see some of the things we have. So in the bedroom, some of the items we'll have in terms of technology is an integrated video screen. And this is really the lifeblood of our remote support platform. What this is going to do, it's going to have a personal assistant in there, but it will also have things like their calendar. It will have reminders, medication alerts, two-way video calling, not just for the remote support center, but anyone they may want to interact with. Also emergency response. So if something's going on, the staff member that's remotely monitoring can respond into a situation. They can initiate a video call. If no one picks up, they can turn it on. A lot of cool stuff's going to come out of that integrated video screen. Also, that control connects in with a lot of the sensors that are in the house. So there's sensors that go in the bed that can tell how someone's sleep is going, if they're getting enough sleep. There are even some sensors that go as far as to test body temperature that can tell when illness may be coming on, which is really important right now. There will be floor sensors. If you look at the bottom, when someone leaves their bed at night, we'll have lighting that will help prevent them from falling. We know that most falls happen from the bedroom to the bathroom at night. And so being able to, that when someone's feet hit the ground, the lights are on so they can follow a pathway to the bathroom. Some other technology that we'll have in the house extends into the bathroom. So one of the most dangerous places we have in our homes is our bathroom. A lot of times you can slip, you can fall, you can get cut, lots of different stuff. And so we're building technology in there. Some things that we have are smart faucets that can control temperature, prevent scalding, automatically turn off after certain periods of time. We'll also have an integrated verbal assistant in the bathroom as well. This one's a little different than the one in the bathroom or the bedroom, because not necessarily do you want video cameras in the bathroom checking in on you, but it will have the opportunity to have scheduling, have reminders, and also to request assistance as needed. Some accessories that we're going to have in the bathroom would be things like a smart mirror. We have assistive smart toothbrushes that sync up with the smart mirror that can map someone's mouth. They'll actually tell someone when they're brushing their teeth, if they're brushing it appropriately, which is really cool. We found in looking at a lot of these toothbrushes that they seem really cool because they have timers that can report information out. Unfortunately, I can turn that on and set it in the sink, and then someone remotely thinks I brushed my teeth. There's new technology that can actually tell someone where they've missed, where they brushed their teeth. There's smart razors that can prevent cuts and ensure that they are doing that appropriately as needed. And then assistive toilets. So we are thinking of things as we build this house, not just for the 4 guys that are in the early part of their lives, but this is what we have as part of our Forever Home project at LAD. And so the homes that we're building for people, in our minds, could be the home forever, for as long as they want. And so we're putting things like a plug behind the toilet so that if there ever needs to be a lift or a different device put in there. There's also technology that goes down the road that when you think about our needs and solutions spreadsheet, that everything you may want, there are some really cool technologies in the world of toilets where they can actually tell if someone is sick, what type of meds they've taken, if they've taken them, things like that. As we've evaluated what we can and can't put into the house, because there are limitations eventually on cost, that's one of the things that we're not quite there yet, but it's really exciting, the technology that's going along with it. Then we move into the kitchen, where technology will be there to ensure safe cooking, cleaning, food ordering, and bed administration. One of the cool things about the kitchen is the smart refrigerator. And this is something that really, the technology is novel. And for a lot of these things, as we talk about the different technologies, they already exist, but they're not really set up for someone who needs to overcome a barrier, who has a significant disability, or for a safety or a security model. And so you think about something like a smart refrigerator, and for a lot of our homes, it's just a novel thing to have. It's a cool gadget. But you think about for someone who maybe doesn't drive, who has a hard time ordering groceries, finding healthy meals, a smart refrigerator can solve a lot of those problems. And so the refrigerator that we have, it actually can order groceries. It does menu planning. They have cameras that are inside the refrigerator, so remote staff can see the food. They can see if stuff's going bad. They can see how long things have been there, if there's food in the refrigerator. You know, when we think about putting 4 guys in there that are late 20s, early 30s, who knows how well they'll keep up on their shopping. And so it will assist with that. We can set it up where groceries can be ordered for pickup, or groceries can be delivered. It can be done on an automatic setting. It can be done as needed. It's really cool stuff. The smart oven, that fear that we always have that someone will leave the house and leave the oven on. I think about that all the time, always wondering, did I leave the stove on? Did I leave the oven on? The smart technology, auto shuts off. It can be shut off remotely. Same with the dishwasher. The dishwasher has technology in it that can be reminded if it hasn't been ran, so we can know if someone's actually done the dishes, but also it'll notice if it's being left on constantly, if it's used the wrong type of soap. So when we have, inevitably someone's going to put the dish soap for the sink into the dishwasher and the mess that causes, things like that. And then also the idea of a stove that has convection technology or inductive technology, so that the burns on the stove are decreased significantly. Another cool aspect about the house is the sensory room that we're putting in. And so in terms of hearing, touch, visual, and smell, those senses, creating a room. And when you think about the house, we had a cool sunroom, and a sunroom is a perfect place for someone who wants to have a sensory location where they can go and be at one with nature and look out at nature and be outside. And but there are also a lot of people who want the dark, who want screens that come down, who want to use the other type of light or visual technology. And so the sensory room is a really cool aspect that we're building in that'll have some cool features. So right now, when someone walks into the sensory room, they can tell the home automation system, sensory room for Brian, for example. And for my sensory room, when I walk in and say that, blackout shades come down, the lava lamps and the fiber optic lights can come on, and the type of music I like would go on. But then let's say if somebody else goes in and says sensory room for Joe, it could open up all the blinds and it could open up all the windows so they could actually be one with nature. So it's a really cool innovation that we have that, again, is something that's typically built for home automation, that's there for a novelty, but we found a way to make it so it can really help someone who needs to have that sensory room experience. Now, we found that through our platform solution, these are the things that we've been able to get that are must-haves, because everyone asks, what are we really going to need? So for communication, we have 6 requirements that relate to voice and video and simple staff assistance. For home monitoring, we have 14 must-have requirements, and those things relate to detecting monitoring activities around the home. So we want to be able to know, have people come and gone in the house, what parts they're in, if somebody needs assistance while they're in the house. For smart health, we have different things that monitor health metrics. So we have scales integrated with blood pressure cuffs and different medical devices. We have one person who uses a CPAP machine. That'll be integrated into the house. So there'll be reminders to clean it, reminders if he's using it, things like that. Another big part is the daily routines. We know that a lot of the time that our staff spend in working with individuals is assisting them with tasks and routines, recurring tasks specifically. And knowing that we can put these things together and put routines in one place has been really cool. And then we have external monitoring and home automation. And those have requirements to help us solve the other issues I've been talking about. Our home automation does a lot of different things, and we had to go with a separate provider. And there's a huge list, but I'm just going to hit a few of those things. One of the really cool features is that when they leave the house, when anyone leaves the house, there's no one else in there, and they set the security system, the house will shut off, basically. The stove turns off, any heat or AC would turn off, the lights turn off. Basically, all those things that you forget to think about, did I unplug this, did I turn this off, will be taken care of. It's a great safety mechanism. And then when they come home at night, the lights will light up as people walk to the house. As they disarm the security system, different lighting schemes will turn on based on the time of day. All of these things are integrated together along with our remote support so that the staff that aren't in the home anymore, that have been faded out, can also monitor those things from afar. And then lastly, our wearable solutions. So like I said, we want to be able to take this from the house, but also into the community. And so some things that we wanted to be able to look at are things like GPS location, geofencing, the need to track multiple person at once, real-time notifications, and then also the ability for someone to reach out and call it. It could be something serious like they're lost or they don't know where they're at, to something simple like I'm at the grocery store and don't know how to make change. Also, what we found with our wearable solutions is we've been able to find fall detection and then healthy tracking, being able to look at different things. So you can see the list of things that we field tested and are currently field testing to solve that solution. And so at the end of the day, really what we're looking for is a new model that connects the home, the wearing the technology in the community, and then the staff, which would more likely be remote in the long run, to wrap all of these things together. Now, our program is that on day one, we will have staffing in the home, the traditional staffing, during the day, and then at night having remote monitoring through the night. And then as the guys learn the technology and we learn how the technology interacts with them, we will start fading that technology out over the next period of time. As we fade that out, we'll be introducing technology to replace the things that the staff were doing. And like I said to my staff, it's not that we're getting rid of them, it's that we're reevaluating what they do and having that higher level of support they'll be given. The next thing we're doing is obviously scaling this out. So this is a slide that gives kind of an idea of the different clusters of homes that we have around the Cincinnati area. And the cluster of home is really an idea that we found that really helps us work on that economy of scale to also continue to provide services. So all of our home areas that we have are clusters of at least 3 homes that are within 5 minutes of driving or safe walking, but yet not on the same street. We don't have like 3 homes in the same cul-de-sac. They're all in similar neighborhoods, similar areas. And what that does is it will allow us to, as someone needs it, there is a staff that can intervene, a live staff, a physical person within 5 minutes, and they can go around and also provide the other services that are needed. Now what this does, it also allows us to provide remote supports at a larger scale. So what this really allows us to do is have one support person that's at a remote center providing service to many people all at once. So that allows us to, instead of having a home where you have 6 homes in a cluster and each home has to have X amount of staff around the clock, you can have one person providing remote supports for all 6 homes at a given time. So really scaling back the need of the staff that you have and also decreasing those costs and the resources that can be used elsewhere. Now, at the end of this, like I said, in our partnership with Xavier University, we're developing a toolkit that we're going to share with other agencies that will be able to help you guys do this on your own. I know that we're lucky in Ohio that we're a technology first state. And so some of these things that I'm describing probably don't even exist in the area that you're at, but I guarantee it's coming, especially now that everyone's been so used to using technology now. It's going to be happening in your area soon. Now, the other thing I want to hit in the last about 12 minutes, 10 minutes that I have is how we've had to pivot what we're doing now for the pandemic. So at the beginning of this year, everything was great. We were on point, we were on time, we were under budget. It was really moving at a great pace. I mean, it felt like a train sometimes, but it was really moving right ahead. And so we've been building this service model that we hope to fully test, pilot, vet, on a very small scale to ensure we were doing everything exactly right. And then COVID hit and everything we were doing kind of went out the window. Now we decided that we are not going to put this on hold. We're continuing through because we're so already deep into it. But for the last years, LAD has been a fully community-based agency. And now that we've had to shift back to place-based organizational services during our stay-at-home order, we've had to look at how we're doing things differently. So what's been really lucky for us is we've been doing all this work around technology, and instead of using the technology, piloting it with the guys where they're at now, then piloting it in the home, and then rolling it out to everybody else, we shifted that model and we've rolled out a lot of this technology already to this day. So we've made the strategic decision to already start a lot of our initiatives in a lot of the homes where we're already providing services. Basically now we are running 2 agencies at a time, but knowing at the end of this, we're going to be stronger than when we were before. So some of the things that we've done is early implementation is our emergency remote supports. And so we've been able to increase remote supports at several different sites immediately. And what that has allowed us to do is we made an early strategic decision in terms of safety back in early March that we were not going to allow staff to move between different sites where they were serving. Now, as you imagine, when I talk about how we have clusters of homes and that we already have and staff moving between homes, that causes a huge problem. With emergency remote supports that we put in and given the guidance to start providing those services, we've been able to still continue the level of staffing and service that we were before using different types of technology. We've also to be able to increase our wearable technology to continue some of our other programs. LAD has a very deep and thought out health and wellness program, but it's hard to track a lot of those things when we're not in the same group together. So using wearable technology, we've been able to continue to do that as well. We've also been able to do virtual check-in visits. And what's really cool about this is as people are more and more on the stay-at-home orders, the isolation is starting to set in. So being able to check in virtually using technology has been super helpful. We've also been able to continue with online skills and social training. And so we've been able to work with the guys that are moving into the home to start training them on the things they were going to do in person and in groups, doing it on their own through technology. And then also through individualized and group activities. So using technology and using the infrastructure we have built, we've been able to continue a lot of our group activities and individual activities through this pandemic. And so you can see a couple of screenshots I have. One of the things that's been really cool is we're continuing with some virtual art classes. We've done some live events, which we do almost on a daily basis. And what it does is a way for our people that we serve to get together and to still interact with each other. And it's amazing how if you jumped into that thing every day at 2 o'clock, it would seem like this was the first event, like no one had seen each other, when a lot of them had seen each other just the day before. And then LAD sponsors and puts on a film festival every year, the Over the Rhine Film Festival. And what we've been able to do through technology still, through what we've set up, is screenings and watch parties. And so being able to continue with those services through technology has really been impactful. It's allowing our individuals to connect with each other. It's been allowing our staff members to continue to provide services, and it's allowing us to continue with our mission to ensure that people are living to the highest self they can be. Now, with all of this, our Smart Living pilot continues, and this is a great shot here of one of the training activities we had. And so we have our resident consultant and the person that works with her, myself, and then the 4 guys. And this is an opportunity where we had always planned to do a bunch of different activities in the community to test a lot of the equipment, which is really hard to do now as groups. And so we're getting together, we're still meeting and still learning what's going on. We've been lucky and our home build has not moved. Our move-in is still happening. We're still doing our neighborhood tracking. The only thing it's all now is virtual and through technology. The great thing is new technology is emerging through all of this. So as all of us have been forced to go and work remotely and do things differently, new technology is coming out. And so we've had an opportunity to try and find new things and work them through all of this. So that's really the things that I wanted to share today. It was really exciting to talk about the project that we have. And in 45 minutes, it doesn't really come close to explain the breadth of what we're looking at. What we've really been able to find is that through our technology and through the different things that we're doing, all of the aspects of our service has changed. And so we're relentless in trying to ensure that the people we're working with are more included in their community, are more equitable, and are given the tools they need to live. And so as we begin to continue our pilot, I hope that you will continue to reach out to me. My email address is here, so if you have any ideas, like I said, if you found that solution to a multi-user smart med dispenser, which I've reached out to a lot of people for, please reach out to me and let me know. We're excited for the opportunity that we have and excited to share that with you. And so I just want to say thanks. So now I think that we are going to go to some questions. And so it looks like a few have been answered. So I'm just going to go through and answer some of these things. Like I said, if I don't have an answer to it right now, or we can't get to all of them, I just want to let you know that we will send some of these out and give you answers on them. So a lot of people asked about the PowerPoint. We are going to be sending some of those out to you, so you'll be able to get them and get those things. One of the questions asked is, do all of the guys being supported communicate verbally? Are you looking at options for people who don't communicate verbally? That's a great question. So actually, one of the individuals that we have does not communicate verbally, and when he does, it's very little. And so it's been really exciting. And a lot of people, when we decided to have him join our pilot, thought that's going too far. And it's exciting to look at it because we are finding that there's a lot of technology that we have to think about differently, because when everybody is verbal, it's easier to just go through and do it all together. So yes, one person is, like I said, we have someone that's verbal impairment, we have someone with a hearing impairment, and someone with a visual impairment. So we have looked at all different things. Another question, what if power is interrupted for an extended period of time? That's a great question. So we live in an area where we do have those things happen all the time. We have tornadoes here, so those things knock out power. Those things don't stop. And so we have built-in generators that's going to be built into the house that'll have a backup that way, as well as the remote technology has a separate backup system into it as well that will back up with batteries, as well as if the internet goes down, it's backup through data. And so we are making sure that we have backup as well. And at all given times, like I said, there are staff members that are within 5 minutes driving that can get there anytime. Great. So another question, this is a good one that comes up a lot. Are the residents constantly being monitored remotely? That depends on the individual. So each person, we took this at a very individualized approach. So some of our people that we serve do need remote monitoring all the time. Some of them only need it for a little bit here and there. Some of it just need the remote system to be there in case they need something. And so based on the person's individual needs, that's how we determine our staffing. Do we have in-person staff at all? Yes. In the beginning of the pilot, we do have in-person staff there all the time when people are awake, and then that's being faded out. As we look at the needs, that's why we didn't want to just jump in. We want to be sure we fade it out, because the last part of that question, is it safe for the medication administration to be automated? For some people, absolutely it is. And I know for a lot of people, they take their medications automated form as well. For some people, it's not. And so we will still have staff that come in and do targeted intervention services. It could be medication administration for some people. It could be that there's parts of teaching and training that they still need that's going to be in person. And so those are the things that we will still have as we go through. All right, some of these are overlapping, so I'm going to scroll through for a second. So great question about the settings rule with the clusters being planned. How do these fit into the final settings rule? So these are all single homes that have 3 to 4 people living in them. They are all separated out. So right now we have a cluster in a community outside of Cincinnati called Blue Ash, and each home is within 5 minutes of driving with each other, and they're all within walking with each other, but I bet 99% of the neighbors don't even know that they're in the same neighborhood. In fact, when we were talking to some city officials earlier this year, they didn't even know that they were all there. And so it really is full integration into the community. And some of these clusters are people that already live in their own home. Some of them are homes where they have roommates and things like that. A question that we have, how are services billed? Are they Medicaid waiver? So some of them are and some of them aren't. So in the home that we have, the 4 guys, 3 of them actually have a waiver and 1 of them does not. And so what we're looking at is, how do we build a program that doesn't fit just people who have waiver services? And so as we develop this technology, we're building a model that we hope at the end of the day will be affordable to anyone that doesn't have a waiver as well. So a price point that we haven't quite set yet that will be under $1,000 a month to still provide the technology and the support that's needed. Now, we obviously use the waiver services for a lot more right now as we're doing that fade out. And then we're also really lucky. We have a lot of amazing partners here in Cincinnati. We have some very generous philanthropy arms who have helped give to this project. We've had a lot of people who have donated and granted us money so that we can do this right. So it's costing a lot on the front end, but we know that on the long run, it will not be like that. Oh, do we provide services just for men? So no, we provide services for all genders, for men, women, and for non-binary gendered individuals. This home happens to have 4 men in it. We have homes that have men and women both in there. We have some that are just for women. Really, it's up to the people that are living there. We let people choose their own roommates. We let them choose how they live. Some people, we serve them just by themselves. So let's see. Oh, this is a great question, Bonnie Jean, thank you. Of the 4 men who will move into the home, are they able to meet each other and decide if they want to be housemates or are they roommates? So yes, they got to meet each other, and it wasn't just the guys getting to meet each other, also the families met each other, making sure they got to know each other, making sure it worked out. And so yeah, we definitely made sure that that worked out. Okay. So I had 6 questions about the final cost. That's great. So this pilot has been quite expensive, and the home has its cost, the technology, the consultants have their costs. And so the cool thing about it is we were able to spend some time and do a lot of thoughtful planning and make sure that we had every answer that we could in hand before we started it, and did some really aggressive fundraising. Our development team has been amazing and been able to do the work for me to give me the opportunity to do this. And so this is probably one of those things that costs way more once and will hopefully never cost this much again. What it is that we're putting all of these costs in up front. And so the home itself costs, around $500,000 to build a home plus the lot, but then you think of another couple $100,000 that go into the technology and everything else. And so a lot of these things are built in now that we will learn from, and then we will not have to recreate over and over again through the process. Someone asked if our smart home will be open for tours after it's completed. Absolutely. So once we have it completed, once we are able to start doing tours and visits, we will be able to have people in. And the cool thing about it is it's not going to be theoretical. So some of the smart homes that we've torn, smart homes, is it's built and it's there, but nobody actually lives in it. So you never really know how it's working. And so when we do tours, the guys are really excited to show you around the house they live in and be able to tell you how it's interacting with them and how it's going to help with them. Yes, so a good question about electronic and electricity costs. Thank you, Donna. How do we anticipate the responsibility on electricity usage being higher than normal? So we've looked into that, and how are we going to split and share those costs? We're also looking into ways to save electricity. So with our home automation partner, we've looked at them to make sure that everything we're doing is very low usage. So the bulbs are all LED, not a lot of issues there. All of the sensors that we built in, we're ensuring that everything is not hardwired into the home for two reasons. One, we want to be able to save on the electrical costs, but also because we want to be able to have anyone use this. We know that we probably won't be building a lot of houses from the ground up like this, and most of you won't either. But what you could do is take some of the things we're learning and use the technology that's Wi-Fi based and put it into existing infrastructure. And so the idea is hopefully the electronic costs won't go up a ton, but we're watching that as well. And we'll be looking at anywhere we can save that, we will. So Sherry, it's a good question. It feels like we're going to automate the responsibilities of DSPs and then they won't have a job anymore. So that is a great question. And we've looked at it and actually found that through adding remote supports, as well as adding targeted intervention specialists, we've done our modeling, and we're going to need a few more DSPs than we actually are running in our current system right now. Because we want to scale up and provide services to more people, we know that we can't do that. There's not enough DSPs to help us double the amount of people that we serve now. Even though we have really good low turnover, we don't have a lot of openings, we know we're not going to have enough. So if we want to really exponentially grow this, we are going to need more DSPs to keep doing that. Privacy of participants and programs being protected. The worry of hacking is always something we've been thinking about. In fact, that's why we brought on 2 different technology partners and consultants to ensure that everything we're building is technologically sound, so that people's private information are safe, that someone can't hack into the house and start messing with it, things like that. And so that's something that we're looking at. A question that came up that we talk a lot about is, how did our team handle conversations around human rights with devices and location monitoring if needed? So that's something that we actually decided to go straight to the county, and that's who oversees the services in Ohio, and to ask them how we should do this right. And we worked with them to find out, how do we do these things and still maintain human rights and make sure that we're not going too far and not broaching them. And we've worked out a program that does that really well. Now, at the end of the day, all of this is voluntary. So we would not want to do anything that even comes close to causing a human rights or a restriction. Everything we're doing, we believe, is something the guys will want to do and that they'll choose to do. Amy, what are we going to do if the guys don't like each other? Good question. I think back to that when I think about my own roommates that I've had before I was married, and now that I'm married and have kids, the roommates that I have now. And some days we love each other, and we probably always love each other, but some days we don't like each other. And so we're teaching them, how do you navigate that? We spent a lot of time in the beginning ensuring that they would get along, making sure that we did a lot of work on the front end. That way we wouldn't have to deal with it going on. So yeah. Let's see here. Do the neighbors know their neighbors without disabilities? Yes. So in every neighborhood that we go into, every home that we build or remodel or go into, we may spend a lot of time meeting all the neighbors. We have whoever's moving that home go and make sure that they meet the neighbors. We host barbecues, we do neighborhood activities. We make sure that they are doing all of these things because we want to make sure they're part of the community and part of the neighborhood. They're not just, we're putting them there and they're going to be cut off from each other. We want to make sure that they're with each other. Another great question is, what if behavior interactions arise? So that's why in the beginning, we're going to be having staff there all the time to start to learn what those things look like. As those things arise, that's why we have the remote monitoring staff that can pipe in through virtual video connection at any time, but also staff that are close within 5 minutes away. And so having those things available. Now, as we get to someone that may have higher behavioral needs, we may have to increase that level of staffing that's there or more increased technology, but we'll look at that as we go. Okay. So good question. How are technologies, especially video cameras, being navigated with state regulations and privacy? So the state of Ohio is a technology first state. And Elizabeth, I don't know where you potentially may are at, but they are really great about using the technology to increase people's independence and help us do a higher level of service that we're doing. And so we make sure that we're following the regulations and the rules that we have. And if anyone's interested, you can reach out to me and I could definitely connect you with some of the rule that we have here in Ohio that shows us what we can and can't use. But with video cameras and things like that, there's a lot of consent that goes into it. There's a lot of going through and talking with people. And there's also areas where we just, cameras will be and they won't be as well. And what is the plan for upkeep? That's something that we're always concerned about. The last thing we want to do is build this amazing house and put a lot of cost into it that 2 years from now basically is like a VCR. So we're trying to be putting in technology that's not hardwired in, that we can upgrade and replace as needed. And also we have built into our service model costs so that we and budgeting so that as we need to replace things, we're doing that. Looks like I have time for a couple more. I apologize to the person that's captioning me. I'm a quick talker and I don't know how to slow it down, or I would, but I'm also trying to get as many things in as I possibly can. So a good question. A few people have asked, is there someone available 24/7? So there is people available 24/7. So not only does our rule require it in Ohio, but we would also make sure that we have it as well. So we're able to, one, dispatch emergency services as quickly as possible, or two, we can have someone there that it's not an emergency, we don't need an ambulance, have someone there, like I said, in 5 minutes or less. The other thing that's really cool, and if you think about, people always wonder, well, how do you actually reduce staff? And one of the situations that we are in right now is we have someone who has a seizure disorder, and because of that disorder, they have a lot of in-person staffing that goes on. But that's one of the main reasons they need it. They probably could be pretty independent without that. The intervention that we provide is not really intense. When this person has a seizure, we walk through our procedure, our protocols. Usually that protocol lasts about 5 minutes, and then we move on. Now, think about if we could, instead of having a person waiting for a seizure to happen, and I know this is simplistic, but it just paints a good model. Instead of having a person there, we use our remote monitoring devices. And so with a wearable device that can give triggers, or the person knows they're having a seizure, we can reach out. We can still provide the same level of support, telling them, hey, let's go sit down, or how do you feel? Do you need assistance? If they don't respond, we can call the same ambulance we would have called if we were standing there. So that's one of the different ways that we can reduce the staff interactions. Okay, great. This is Adam Hartwell's question about, in my agency, we're focused on employment supports. That's where I started in this field, so shout out to employment supports. In regard to this topic, we've therefore focused on the ability of wearables and smart technology for developing independence at work. Are you integrating that as well into your home and community supports? Yes, we are. So all of the guys that live in the home have jobs. And so we're looking at how does this technology go into their work as well? So how do we ensure that they get to work, that they know how to get home from work? How do we answer questions? Can we use the wearable devices to know if they arrived at work, if they did not arrive at work? Also, if they have questions, they could reach out to their job coach through the wearable device easier than sometimes they could now. All right, I have time for one more. So I'm going to get one more and I'm going to try to find a great one. Okay. So how do we organize staff to implement this project? This is a great question. So what we did is we went to the programming department at our company, our programming staff, and said, how do we organize this? How we have it organized right now is we have our clusters have a coordinator that oversees the cluster of homes that are in the area. And then in the homes, we have the lead and the DSPs. And then we also will have the remote support, and they'll have their own organization. So they'll have like the lead, the manager over that, and then the individuals that provide the remote supports. All of these things are communicated across the company. We're really good. we like everyone was pretty siloed off at one point, and so we had to go back and unsilo those things as we're building back and forth upon different things. And so looking at different areas, the organization really is similar to what you would normally have in a service structure, just with an added layer of the remote support staff and the targeted intervention specialists. Okay, well, looks like I am out of time. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, which didn't have a whole lot there anyways. And thank you guys again for everything. Thank you for the opportunity that you gave me to be here and the opportunity to share this with you guys today.
Thank you so much, Brian. We really appreciate it. And we really appreciated a fantastic presentation. The fact that it was hard to keep up with the questions suggests that people were really interested and engaged, which is always great. If you asked a question and you were unable to receive an answer to your question, or if there are questions that you thought about that you didn't put into the Q&A, we will certainly share those with Brian after this presentation has concluded, and we can follow up with you if you still have lingering questions. Before we go, I just want to thank everybody for participating on today's call. I also want to remind everyone that today is the first day of ANCOR's virtual annual conference week. So we have 3 great sessions on deck for tomorrow, which is Tuesday, April 28th. And we also have a slew of virtual office hours for our virtual exhibit hall, where you can visit all of ANCOR's Diamond, Platinum, and Gold partners. Many of those virtual office hours will have folks who are guest speakers or people who are highlighting products and services that you might be interested in, especially as it pertains to your ability to manage through the COVID-19 pandemic. So we hope that you will be joining us again tomorrow and throughout the week. And as a reminder, if you didn't get the chance to listen in on all of today's presentation, we will be making the recording and the slides available to you shortly. Be on the lookout for more information about that via email in the next couple of days. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your afternoon.